And we are recording. Hello, 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 everybody. I'm that Kamen Rider guy, and welcome to not the new, but the refurbished podcast. So, because of complications with the JoJo Bros stuff going on, just some personal stuff with my friend. He is going through personal stuff, doesn't have time anymore. I have rebranded it into RiderGuy RiderTime, and this will be the official That Kamen Rider Guy podcast, where we will be discussing everything and almost anything Tokusatsu, with a couple variations here and there. Yes, we will also be discussing Power Rangers on occasion, but the main focus will be Tokusatsu, aka Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Armored Hero, Ultraman, of course, and any other stuff that is under the Tokusatsu umbrella, from movies to TV shows to even just random wacky stuff that never saw the light of day. My first guest with me today, and who hopefully will be a reoccurring guest, is Wolfie XP. Introduce
Hello,
yourself.
how's everyone doing? Thank you for inviting me to the podcast today.
Hopefully, next time we can get some more people on board, but I'll have to pay extra for that, but we'll work on it.
Gotcha. So, Kamen Rider, huh?
Yes, so I did do an episode about Kamen Rider in the JoJo Bros with my buddy Vampire Lord. We did Kamen Rider, the creator of it, how it got started, his beginning, like how he came up with Kamen Rider, what he worked on before and after, because the same man who made Kamen Rider also made Super Sentai and a bunch of other stuff. But I won't get too much into that because that I did do a whole hour long episode on that. So please go watch that if you can. It'll be linked in the description of the video as long as I remember. And I did send it to you, so when you get some time, give it a watch. It's good information. But
Hmm.
today we are talking about one specific Kamen Rider, and this Kamen Rider is one of the most beloved in the franchise and one of the most popular. Like, if you ask people if they don't like this rider, not a single person will say they don't like him to a certain degree. We are talking, of course, about Kamen Rider Kuuga. Kuuga. Kuuga.
Kuuga.
Kuuga. Yes.
Almost
So,
sounds cool guy a little bit.
he's quite a guy, but we'll get into that. So, first thing to know is that Kuga is the first Kamen Rider in the Heisei era of Kamen Rider. Now, what is Heisei? So, in Japanese filming and TV shows, there are different eras of film and movies. Like, there is an era known as the Showa era, Heisei era, and we are currently in the Reiwa era. So these eras are named after different emperors of Japan. Like the Showa era, which is the Showa era was from the 60s to the early 90s. And well, technically the Heisei era began in the late 80s, but there are certain shows of like Ultraman and Kamen Rider that were still going in the Showa era while the Heisei era had technically started. So the last show in the Showa era, Showa being Showa, the last Showa era series was Kamen Rider Black and then Black RX.
Hmm.
And then in 1993, there was the movie Kamen Rider ZO. And then the next year, in 1994, would be Kamen Rider J. And then the year after that would be Kamen Rider ZO and J, where they would have a crossover movie, essentially. Now, these were the last Showa era riders. And yes, J and ZO, even though they technically debuted in the Heisei era of filming, they are still considered Showa riders.
Wow.
Yes, like the Heisei era of Godzilla was before the year 2000. Like in the Godzilla films, the Heisei era was mm, late 80s, early 90s in a sense, or it was just mid 90s. But for
Gotcha.
Heisei of Kamen Rider, the technical beginning is with Kuga in the year 2000 when he debuted.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know it was like more than one era. I always did thought like, like that it was like this early 70s was how it all started. And it was like more before that. That's pretty crazy.
Yes, Japan has its own different eras of filming, and anywhere from, I believe, the first era of filming, which were old black and white Japanese films in the 1950s, like the first Godzilla film in 1954,
Hmm.
was the beginning of the Showa era, and it lasted for quite a while. Like every toku show, at least legacy show like that is attached to a franchise has begun in the Showa era. Ultraman began in 1969, or was it 66? That's for another episode. Ultraman's for another episode. Super
Gotcha.
Sentai began in 1975, and Kamen Rider began in 1971.
Yes, where it got its influence and technically its own spin-off in a small way because it was the same gimmick, but instead of one hero, it's multiple heroes in one group.
Yes, and I talked about that in the Origins of Kamen Rider episode we did, where the creator was approached by Toei and was like, and Tokusatsu, or Toho specifically. It was like, hey, we love your Kamen Rider show, but what if you made a show of multiple heroes?
Right, and that's how it all started, and
Yes,
still
yes,
and still going.
very much ongoing. Next year is actually the 50th anniversary of Super Sentai.
Wow, that long.
Yes, and it will also be the 54th? No, so 2026 will be the 55th anniversary of Kamen Rider. 2021 was the 50th anniversary. But we're getting off topic. Back to Kuuga.
Yes, Kuga. You said the most beloved character from.
He is a
Oh,
very beloved writer. The actor is a wonderful person,
uh-huh.
and I can't think of anyone who's a Kamen Rider fan, or at least who has gotten into it and knows more than just a couple of them, who doesn't like Kuga. Now, I will say, if you want to watch Kamen Rider Kuuga, there are several ways to do it. There are some Facebook pages that are all about uploading episodes of Kamen Rider series that have the entire series, but
Hmm.
also on Tubi, you can watch Kamen Rider Kuuga for free. Or you can get the Blu-ray box set off Amazon for I think $45 or $50, and it's got everything crisp, remastered HD, and it's worth every penny.
Gotcha. So, what does what kind of certain power he has his own, or
We'll get into that. So first, Huga. So after the end of the Showa era of riders, there was a 5-year gap from 1955 to the year 2000, and
huh?
for a while, Toei wasn't even sure if they were going to continue Kamen Rider. They had actually, for a while, considered letting it all die and let the legacy rest, but there was too much money to be made in letting that happen, so they decided to at least try to continue the series
I
because
see.
obviously when you're a film production studio, financial situations are a big thing.
Gotcha.
It isn't necessarily that they're greedy. Well, of course, every business is going to want to make money. How else are you going to continue a business? But
Yeah.
of course, because Kamen Rider hadn't done so well since Black and Black RX, and they were very much falling on a budget. Kuga had a very small budget when it started, and to this day, Kuga is the only Heisei era series that does not have a standalone movie. So every
Still,
other rider after Kuga got a movie or a crossover movie of some sort, or in most cases both.
huh?
Yes. So the first, let me check my notes real quick before I get off too far away. Okay, so uh, so I already talked about that. So Kuga, the first episode of Kuga is called Revival, and yes, it is because it was literally a revival of the series.
That's a good one actually. Instead of a pilot, like how every beginning of a show says pilot episode for like see how it takes course, instead it's just revival, is just bringing back franchise to keep it up in spirits. It's
Yes.
clever.
So the show of we'll start off with talking about like how the first episode goes, like how Kuga gets established, because usually that's what a first episode is. It's establishing who the main rider is, what his motivations are, and the enemy he's fighting.
Hmm.
So Kuga, the character who becomes Kamen Rider Kuga is known as Yusuke Godai, and he's played by a actually at the time who was already a veteran actor, Joe Oda Joe Odagiri.
Joe Otagiri.
Yes. So Joe Odagiri was already a well-known actor at the time. And fun fact, this is not a joke. When Kamen Rider Kuuga aired, a big reason why it got a lot of views, like Kuuga did unbelievably well. It did better than they ever expected it to.
And a small
And
budget.
yeah, they had a very small budget, like easily the smallest budget of almost any Kamen Rider out there, even the ones that aired in the 70s.
Wow, that's well, that is something that's like starting on like a new millennia.
Yes. And so Kuga, the actor who played him, Joe Onigiri, was already a well-known actor, and he was essentially a pretty boy. A lot of viewership came from Japanese women who would turn it on just to get a look at the guy.
Of course, that's so classic and typical. That's and still it
I'm
still
not.
is.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Like, yes, kids loved Kuga, but parents would often let their kids watch Kamen Rider because they want to
Just to
get a look
watch
at the
it.
pretty boy. Yes,
That's a nice excuse.
it's hilarious. And I remember I heard that during an interview that Joe Odagiri did many years ago. He would always blush when people would tell him that because he's a pretty humble guy and he never really thought he was that good looking. Obviously, he took care of himself, but he's a very humble man. He doesn't look for like he doesn't go out of his way to seek fame.
Gotcha. Like, has he done like one of like like conventions a little bit or not really?
No, not really. He does keep his personal life private. He's done interviews here and there, and obviously he's been in a lot of movies and TV shows, and he's done like interviews for them. You know, like how movies will have times where like, oh, here are the actors. We're going to talk to them about the movie and ask them some personal questions. He's done stuff like that, but in terms of being in the public, he hasn't really done a whole lot outside of movies and TV. Although, funny enough I think it was either last year or the year before, he was in a coffee commercial where he was a man calling a coffee shop, and the person he called who owned the coffee shop was the very first Kamen Rider.
Wow, that's
And it was actually a
that's really good.
fun fact, it's a commercial advertising the coffee that the first Kamen Rider, whose name escapes me right now, actually started. He's got his own coffee brand.
Well, that's great. Starting like a little spin-off on there.
Yeah, but outside of that, Joe Odagiri has not made any returns to the series, and we'll get into that later as to why it is. Back to Kuga. So the first episode of Kuga starts off with this flashback into ancient past. Like it's a black and white clip of these ancient warriors fighting, and this warrior in armor fighting these monsters, but he gets mortally wounded in the fight. So these
Mhm.
mysterious people in robes, they take him, they put him in this stone coffin, and they seal it away. And so Kuga has an emblem, which I'll get a picture of right now and put in the chat, or not the chat, the Discord. Um, but anyway, so this tomb's got the symbol of what would be known as the symbol of Kuga on it. Why it became the symbol of Kuga, we'll get into that a little bit later. But anyways, there's these archaeologists who are digging up these tombs that they rediscovered in the modern era, and they find this weird stone relic that looks kind of like a belt, and they take it back to a lab. So our character, our main rider, Yusuke Godai, who I'll just call
Mhm.
Yusuke because to keep it simple, he's outside a train station with a small child because the kid is crying and he's trying to make him smile.
Gotcha.
So, so Yusuke Godai is a very simple and very heartwarming person. He's a man who not that he can't do no wrong, but he doesn't seek to do wrong. He's a good person by nature, and he just wants to protect everyone's smile. You know, the classic hero trope. Like,
Yeah,
I'm the good guy because why not?
got you. That makes sense.
Yeah. And his classic pose is a thumbs up. So anytime like he wants to reassure someone or give a yes to an answer or just be like everything's okay, he gives the thumbs up.
Mhm.
And fun fact, in the lore of Kuga, he gives the thumbs up because that is what his teacher in school told him was a gesture of goodwill to people. And I just put in the Discord Kuga's symbol.
Got you.
So he is also known, Yusuke Godai is also known as the man of 1,000 talents, meaning he knows how to do 1,000 different things and do them perfectly. Essentially, he's a jack of all trades. He knows how to do a lot of stuff really well, from sewing, cooking, making coffee, fixing stuff, and even just conversation. Like, he's got natural charisma that he doesn't even know about.
So he's almost like a perfect prodigy of many things.
Essentially, yes. And that was the whole idea of Kuga, was that the rider was a wholehearted person who didn't fight because he enjoyed it. He fought because he had to.
Hmm.
So when the archaeologists uncovered the crypt of Kuga, they also accidentally awoken these ancient monsters called Grongi, who are from the tribe. It's in my notes. It's in my notes. They are from the tribe known as the Rinto tribe.
The Rito tribe?
Rinto, Rinto, Rinto.
Ah, Ringto.
Yeah. So, um, Kuga is also I think, a part-time archaeologist, at least, or he's got a degree in archaeology. I forget exactly. It's been a minute since I watched it, and I did a quick refresher video last night. But anyways, they're studying this ancient artifact, and then this spider monster shows up to attack people and retrieve the artifact. And the artifact is called the Arcle, Arcle, Arcle.
Oracle.
And every time Yusuke Godai looks at it and touches it, he gets visions of the ancient warrior fighting monsters. And when the spider monster attacks people, something tells him to put on the belt, so he does. The stone around the belt cracks, and the shiny silver metal is revealed, and it morphs into his body. And he then dons the Kuga armor. Well, he dons the
Wow.
growing armor. So Kuga has a bunch of different forms, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I will send you a picture of the growing armor real quick.
Hmm.
There it is. Okay, so this is Kuga growing form. It's
Hmm.
very simple, and he's got tiny little horns because this is like when Kuga first awakens and he doesn't really have his full power yet.
Got you.
Now, I will say, for those who are watching Kamen Rider Kuuga for the first time, remember it had a very small budget, and the CGI is very outdated, but it's the best they had at the time, and it's got a certain charm to it when you watch it. But anyways, Kuuga, after he gets the armor, he fights back against the monster, and he doesn't kill it because he's not strong enough yet, but he does manage to force it to retreat. So he calls himself Kuga from the visions and a voice of the ancient civilization speaking to him through the Arcle, and he calls himself Kuga, but the police refer to him as unidentified life form 1, and all the other monsters they also refer to as unidentified life forms because they don't know where they are or where they came from, so it's the thing that makes the most sense to them. Does that make sense? Wolfie?
Me now? Hello?
Yeah, yeah, you okay?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm good now. Yeah, I was
Okay.
trying to say how it's pretty. I think it was really generic. How they kept it like very simple, like just like any type of classic hero show like that.
Yeah,
Where
just wait till we get to the other forms.
gotcha. So the growing form was his first form starting.
Yeah, it's also the form he reverts to when he takes a lot of damage or he uses too much energy. It's a form that he takes, that the Arcle goes back to it when it's simply out of power or when he's taken too much damage and he needs to recover. Usually, if he's forced into the growing form, he'll need to rest for anywhere from 12 to 30 hours to recover his energy.
So it really does take a toll on him when he dons on the belt.
Yes. So the next time he fights a Grongi. I almost called him something else. So when he fights a Grongi again, he is able to fully awaken the power of Kuga. He's got a better understanding of himself, and he's also working with this one police officer who essentially becomes his partner, whose name I forgot to put in my notes, but it's fine. And the police throughout the show develop, they get better. They're actually able to fight the Grongi and push them back. But Kuga does do most of the heavy lifting. So Kuga, in a burning church fighting this vampire bat Grongi, says, "Just watch my henshin." So I discussed in the first episode, henshin is the basically Kamen Rider catchphrase. It means transform or to change. It's like a Power Ranger saying it's morphing time and then saying their
Yeah.
catchphrase. But
Except it's the evil person saying this time.
the Kamen Riders say this.
Oh, okay, my mistake.
Yeah, henshin. So like Kuga, he puts his hand in front of him, does a finger pose, which I'll send you a video of later, and he goes henshin, and then he presses down on the arc hole, and it activates his transformation. And the first form Kuga has access to, and is considered his main form, is known as the mighty. Oh crap, where is it? Where I know I saved it in. Oh no, hold up, I gotta find it. Oh no, it's not here. Okay, so look at the growing armor and imagine that, but red, and his
But
horns are
red.
bigger. Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta find it real quick. Why didn't it save to my computer? Okay, okay. Yeah, so Kuga, he gets the true power. He unlocks the true power of Kuga, and his main form is also known as Mighty Form. It's
Mighty
the
form.
Yes. So it's the armor is red. I got the picture. I'm sending it now. Oh man. Okay. Yes, okay. So is Kamen Rider Kuuga Mighty form. So this form is all about hand-to-hand combat. It in terms of physical strength, it's the strongest, and it's all about punching and kicking. He's able to take a decent amount of damage in this form, and he can unleash devastating punches and kicks. And in this form, he unlocks the ability of the Rider Kick. So
The
again, I
rider
talked.
kick.
So the Rider Kick or Rider Punch is a Kamen Rider's finishing move. It's something every Kamen Rider has to a certain degree, with a couple exceptions here and there. But Kuga, he'll charge up his power. He'll take a stance. He'll run at the enemy, jump into the air, and hit them with a devastating kick that sends all of his power into their body until they boom explode.
That's actually pretty cool, man. Like, I didn't know that they had that type of unique power. Plus you said like they have their own generic type of finishing move like that.
Yes. So every rider has a rider kick or a rider punch, or some have both. It just depends on how they choose to implement it. Anyways, so Kuga decides that in order to protect people's smiles and keep these Grongi from needlessly killing people, that he's going to continue to fight as Kuga and protect humans and anyone who needs protection. Now, let's talk about the main bad guys real quick, the Grongi.
The Grongi.
The Grongi. So Grongi are very unique monsters, and they are very, very cruel. They see human life as nothing but a passing thought. They believe they are the ultimate species and that everything else is just beneath them. So the Grongi, why do they kill people? Well, it's a game to them. They literally are playing a game of who can kill the most people. So when the Grongi
So
meet up,
so it's a sport
sorry,
basically they're trying to play.
it's literally sport to them. Yes. So when the Grongi go around killing people, they're doing it for two reasons. One, to show their own power and strength, and two, as a way to challenge the boss. So um, I'll get into I'll get into the boss in a minute. Like the final villain of Kuga. So the Grongi enter the game, and it can be something simple like, hey, just go kill people, or hey, kill people a specific way, like drop them from the top of buildings, only kill people that have blonde hair, or kill people from behind, or only when they're fishing. They turn it into a game. Who can kill the most in the most creative way? And they have these bracelets or necklace with these little beads on them, and they'll move the beads over to keep count of their kills.
So they're trying to show their epic prowess against with their abilities to their fellow Kuga. So basically, just trying to like get climbing higher to the food chain to take over like of their own subordinates.
Yes. So A member of the Rinto tribe who kills enough people, shows their strength, and does that is able to challenge the leader of their tribe to be the top leader. And
Hmm.
Grongi also don't care about their own people. They will happily kill their own uh, um, if they see them as weak or inferior.
I see
Like
it.
by the time you finally meet the main villain, like the not the main villain, but the big boss of the Grongi, you learn that he has already killed over 100 other Grongi because he saw them as weak and inferior and unworthy of life. He
Hmm.
also treats life itself as one big game, like he's just looking for a good fight because it amuses him.
He's one of those villains that's just really just plain bored.
Pretty much.
Gotcha. Causing nothing but havoc just because.
Yes. So the final boss of Kuga in a way is called Daguva, or some just call him Dagu or Dog.
Hmm.
Daguva.
Dakuva.
Yes. So we'll talk more about him later on. First, we need to talk about Kuga's other forms. So as Kuga fights and he struggles because these enemies are very fast or tricky or they've got unique abilities that he doesn't have, he struggles to fight them. And while he does, he unlocks a power either out of desperation or because of need to survive, like a survival instinct. The Arkle reacts to that and then it changes his form. Now, later on, he'll be able to freely change forms, but when he first gets the forms, he doesn't even realize he's transformed, and it's very overwhelming at first. So his first transformation form is known as dragon form, and it's blue.
Dragon form. Ah,
Yeah. So I'm gonna send you a picture of it real quick because I know I do have this. So it's dragon form, and the armor is slightly different, and it's also a lot skinnier. You'll notice if you see it in the Discord.
and I'm assuming this has to be speed, right?
Yes. So this form is physically weaker than Mighty, and in terms of raw power, it is very lacking. Like before, when Kuga would hit this grap hopper Grongi that he was fighting,
Hmm.
when he was in mighty form, his punches hurt him. But then when he went into dragon form, his punches barely did anything. Because this form is all about speed. It has higher reaction time, and he's able to like react in a moment's notice, like a samurai deflecting an enemy's blade, but also landing a devastating kill.
That's awesome. So he's very precise.
Yes, and this form, so Kuga is unique in the sense that he doesn't need to have a weapon on him. He can turn anything into a weapon in a literal sense, not in a metaphorical sense. So when
So,
Kuga is in dragon form,
uh-huh.
he can pick up like a long stick or a walking cane or a metal pipe and turn it into the dragon staff, which you'll see in the second picture is what he's wielding. He physically changes it into this staff, and it's the weapon he uses in dragon form to fight the enemy.
Nice. So is it just only the dragon staff that he can just manifest from anything he grabs, or he has more weapons besides
So
that?
he has to specifically grab an object long enough to be considered like a staff. Like it could
Okay.
be it could be like a walking cane or a long stick or a metal pipe at a construction site. But when he uses the dragon staff, he he can also finish a Grongi with it, landing like a devastating blow to them, and it'll kill them.
Gotcha.
Yes.
That's
So
pretty cool actually.
later on, he has trouble fighting this really fast bee Grongi that can kill people with precision needles it fires from its mouth, and it literally leaves a pinprick so small but so devastating. When people were being killed by this Grongi, it left almost no entry wound, but it hit in such a precise way it would sever the spinal column.
Wow.
Yes. So when Kuga fights this Grongi and almost dies to it, he awakens the Pegasus form.
Pegasus form?
Pegasus form. It's green, baby. So when he first awoke in Pegasus form, it nearly killed him. Not because of how strong it is, but because of how overwhelmed he was. So in Pegasus form, he isn't as fast or as strong as a dragon or mighty form, but his senses are heightened to such a level. When he went into Pegasus form, he could hear people, everyone within a mile radius. He could see colors in way he had never seen before, and all the odors around him were just rushing into his nose. All of his senses had been heightened to an insane degree that it nearly overloaded his brain and killed him.
So the Pegasus form is technically a sensory type.
Yes, but with the Pegasus form, when he got his senses under control and learned how to control them, kind of like how when Superman first learned he had super hearing, but he learned how to pick out certain sounds,
Yeah.
he was able to fight back against the Grongi. And he was in this form, since his senses are so heightened, and his reaction time is actually a lot faster than in dragon form. When Kuuga in Pegasus form, when he picks up a small little hand object like a toy gun or an actual gun, he can turn it into the bow gun. So I'll send a picture of that as well, because I got a good one of him with the bow gun. One sec, I need to find it.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. So the bow gun is, again, he picks up a gun-like object and it turns into this giant gun that's called a bow gun because he pulls back the charging handle. The two like guards, when they were up, they fold down and it charges this super shot of compressed air that can pierce metal.
Wow.
So he basically does a Wild West standoff with the Grongi, and as the
Uh-huh.
Grongi shoots at him, he fires the charge shot. It pierces the needle and the Grongi's head, and he blows up.
That's oh geez, that's more cooler than his dragon form, I would say. Just like how he's very precise like to attack melee wise, but this one's like the
Yes, it
opposite.
it is physically his weakest form, but it's the form he has the highest reaction speed. And if he gets the bow gun, like because again, he has to take a physical object and turn it into a weapon.
Yeah.
If he gets a shot off, it's very unlikely he's going to miss. So why does he have these kinds of weapons? Well, the ancient warrior of Kuuga, because the ancient warrior who first donned the Kuuga armor to fight the ancient Grongi tribe back in ancient times, he
Hmm.
used a bow, a staff, and a sword. And this is the modern Kuuga. He's able to access these weapons, but through a more modern means. Like, again, picking up an actual, like, or picking up he could pick up a toy revolver and turn it into the bow gun. He could pick up a random stick in a park and turn it into the dragon staff.
Got you. Do they
Yeah.
do they
Oh no, his audio's cutting out. I can't hear you if you're speaking.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. I said earlier, does his weapons goes back to normal after he's done defeating his enemies?
Yes. Typically, when he drops the weapon, it'll change back to what it was before, or when he de-transforms.
Got you. That's pretty cool,
Yes.
actually. You
So,
get
Kuga's next form and the last of his like main transformation forms is known as Titan form.
Titan form.
Titan form. It's purple, baby, and it's got easily some of the coolest armor you'll ever see. There it is. Okay, I'm sending it to you now.
Uh,
Titan form, baby. It's
well, from
it's got purple eyes, silver bulky armor, and it is his toughest form.
from hearing the title, the name of the armor, I'm pretty sure this is like heavy defense physically. Am I right?
Yes, yes, it is his strongest in defense and technically in attack power, but not in the sense of punching. So
Hmm.
in Titan form, Kuga also struggles to maintain that level of power and sheer defense that he can't really run. He walks. So when he uses Titan form, he walks towards the enemy and with the Titan sword, which he's able to, he can take any like hilt like object. Like when he gets his bike, he takes the handle off the bike and turns it into the Titan sword.
Nice.
And he can do that with almost any little handheld object. He'll just pick it up and then change it into the Titan sword, which you see there. So when he takes the Titan sword, he slowly walks to the enemy. And then in one swift thrust, he pierces them with the Titan sword. And the energy from that spreads through the the Grongi body and they blow up in his face. But because of the Titan armor, he's able to take the blast.
Yeah, because it's a very devastating like blast radius basically he's trying to
Yeah.
do in close up. That's
Out of
pretty
his,
cool. Like
out of his
he
main 5 forms, Titan form is my favorite.
gotcha. I think it's pretty cool that he just needs a handle or a hilt. But this is kind of bizarre for me to ask. Like like what if he grabs like I don't know like this is kind of random to say like if he grabs like small chocolate bar size that fits his hand, would that consider can he like manifest that as a weapon too?
Potentially, but usually it's some sort of inanimate object that's like made from like raw material.
Ah, okay,
So
got you.
like chocolate, I'm not sure, but say he picked up a little kid, like a little foam sword from a playground or something that a kid was using, that he could then turn it into the Titan sword.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I'm not going over every episode of Kuuga because that'd be too much spoiling, and we don't have enough time for that. But I'm just going over the main stuff. But anyways, to get uh eventually Kuuga fights a Grongi that's too strong for him. It's not the final boss, but it's a really strong one, and it kills him. But
Kills
and
him.
yes, he died, but then he lived.
Huh.
So Kuuga is in the hospital and they're trying to resuscitate him. And when his heart flatlines, they use defibrillators to jumpstart his heart. And something I forgot to mention, but I'll mention now, the Arcle, his belt, which later in Kamen Rider most belts would be called drivers, but his belt is called the Arcle, and it's more of an organic belt. Because when he first put it on, and the more he uses it, it actually melds to his body to the point the belt itself is growing a nervous system inside his body.
So it's becoming not an animate object anymore. It's becoming like a living source.
It is becoming part of his body.
Yeah. That's wow, that's actually pretty cool actually. That's is this like is his belt is it one of those first Kamen Riders that's like a living object basically trying to like morph with him to be as one?
He is one of the first, yes, with a couple exceptions from the Showa era, like Amazon. But Amazon was more of a wild animal. But that's a story for a whole nother day. But
Gotcha.
in terms of Heisei, there are very few, but he is the first that is known as an organic rider, in the sense that his belt, once he puts it on, unless he's killed, it cannot be removed. And he has been using
Gotcha.
it for so long, it has melded to his body. It's grown its own nervous system inside his body.
It makes sense now when you said earlier, Dad. Like the more he uses the belt, it's like he's like it takes a toll of his life energy, I guess, or his vitality. Because like the more he
Yeah,
uses it, the
like
more
the
he gets
when
exhausted.
he's worn out in battle or he fights someone that he can't beat, and he'll be forced into the growing form.
Got you.
So when Yusuke Godai was revived with the defibrillators, the electric pulse from the defibrillator also went to the Arcle, and it juiced him up. Like it made him stronger. So it gave him the ability to enhance all of his rider forms. So now he can enter the rising forms. They're literally all the same forms, but they're called like Rising Mighty, Rising Dragon, Rising Pegasus, Rising Titan. They're the same, but the Arcle gets a little gold like face attachment to it, and all of his armor gets extra gold details.
Hmm.
And his weapons get enhanced as well. If you want pictures, I'll send them later because I didn't prep any. Like the dragon staff gets these bladed gold ends to it that he can slice through almost any enemy. The bow gun gets a lightning, basically edged barrel that shoots even stronger and electrified air projectiles. And the Titan sword, which I actually, so they have made a CSM, complete selection modification, of 2 of Kuga's weapons. Basically, CSM is when they take the child toys and make them adult size. And
Wow.
I have the Titan sword.
Nice.
they also they also made the bow gun, but I've struggled to find that. But
Well,
anyways,
that's yeah, that's really cool actually. Like so, like when he came back, like you say, he comes back to life, but he's like twice as strong than ever. Not just his raw strength, but like, his whole power as well has been doubled and changed.
his whole arsenal got upgraded. And he did struggle with the power at first. It's like suddenly being able to lift a car. Like he didn't know the limits of his strength.
Till
So
now.
And in Titan form, not only does his sword get like an extra golden etch on the end, but he can also summon 2 Titan swords and dual wield that bitch.
Nice.
He dual wields, baby.
And
Kirito who? Kirito who? I'm kidding.
like is it like more devastating blow than ever? Like a massive
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's a point where Kuuga, if they had the budget, they planned to show him slicing through a car with ease with a Titan sword, but
wow.
they were on a budget.
Still worked though, surprisingly. All
Yes.
that.
So one thing I need to mention before we talk about the final boss fight that I forgot to bring up, Kuuga it gets 2 motorcycles throughout the show. The first one is called the Tri Chaser 2000, and the second one is called the Beat Chaser 2000. Essentially, it's Kuga's personal bike that he rides into battle and just around town when he's not Kuuga when he's Yusuke Godai. So later on, he gets this armor called the Go Ram armor. So the Go Ram armor were these also ancient artifacts that were found in the Temple of Kuuga, which isn't the official name. That's just what I call it.
Hmm.
So these artifacts, when they were brought together, they awokened and they, like the Oracle, they shook off their stone, basically cover, became metal. And the Go Ram armor was ancient horse armor that the first Kuuga used, but because it's the modern era, it reconfigures itself to be able to fit onto his motorcycle, and it becomes the Go Ram battle armor for his motorcycle. And it looks like a giant beetle because most Kamen Riders are themed after bugs, which I also explained in my first Kamen Rider episode. But basically, Kuuga is based off of a beetle called the Kuagata beetle, which has these giant mandibles, which are Kuga's horns.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the Go Ram is a giant beetle that becomes his motorcycle armor, and he can ram the fuck out of an enemy with it and send them flying and sometimes outright kill them.
Hmm.
Just something
So
fun I thought I'd mention.
yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Like his like you said about his bikes is like also gets enhanced. But I'm more curious about his bike real quick. Is that you say he also uses that bike when he's not in Kuga mode, right? Or Kuga form.
Yeah. So his bike is a regular motorcycle when he's riding it around, when he's Yusuke Godai, when he's in, when he's not transformed. But then when he transforms, the bike transforms with him.
Okay, that's why I was thinking.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
see.
It wasn't something they were originally going to do, but they did it out of what felt like necessity. And in Kuuga, they have a lot of bike like fights and stunts, like which is a staple in Kamen Rider. Like they have a lot of times where Kuuga will chase down an enemy on the bike, or he'll try to fight them with his bike.
That's awesome.
It's a little silly when you watch it, but I can respect the effort that went into it because the stunts are very well performed.
Got you. Well, you can't complain about that then.
Yeah, I'll save some pictures and send them to you later of Kuga on his bike because I did not have these prepped beforehand. I apologize. But anyways, so what were my other notes on? Let's see. Oh yeah, so Kuga fights another really strong enemy that is not the final boss, but
Okay.
it again almost kills him. And so they are debating on whether or not to use the defibrillators again because last time it did give him his power boost, but doing so was super dangerous because as Kuga goes on fighting and getting stronger, so are the devastations of his battles. Like when he does the rider kick and he finishes an enemy, the explosions keep getting bigger and bigger to the point they're causing tremors.
So he's basically causing the environmental was it collisional damage, basically.
He's causing a lot of collateral damage.
Collateral damage. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
it's to the
wow.
point where one explosion leveled a construction site.
Got you. So basically, the environment's not up to their same level because it's like it's too
Yeah.
frail when it comes to
So
fighting.
I'm gonna tell you this: by the end of Kamen Rider Kuuga, he is strong enough to split a continent in half with a single rider kick. Not a joke. That is lore.
I get it. It's so funny, but it's like it's crazy. It's like it's more like this man's like He thought, yeah, he was a hero, but like now he has like a weird leveling up system, like in the video game. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
cool.
and
Yeah.
the reason Kuga is able to maintain a lot of his power, so the Kuga armor and Kuga as a whole was created to be a warrior, to be a fierce being of battle. But no one could ever truly harness the raw power of Kuga unless they had a good-natured heart, a pure heart that simply wanted to do good, which is what Yusuke Godai has always been. And because of that, he's able to properly handle the power of Kuga. But they are concerned because as the Grongi get more vicious and they get more sadistic, like my favorite episode of Kuga is when Kuga loses his shit. Yusuke stops being the nice guy. I'll explain that in a second. But anyways,
Okay.
um, so the concern is if Kuga loses the battle, the internal battle of good and evil, he will become a raw force of destruction and destroy any in his path without discrimination. Now, my favorite episode of Kuga. There's this Grongi that mentally tortures people before it kills them. It'll like psych them out, make them paranoid, think that everyone's out to get them, and then it'll kill them. And it's done this to quite a few people. And some people are even in mental hospitals because of it. Now,
Got you.
Yusuke is extremely frustrated because he's not able to save so many people and he feels like he's failed. So when he finally tracks down the Grongi, he tackles him while he's transforming outside of a window on like the 8th floor of this hospital. And while he's on the ground and this crowd and police have surrounded him, he's punching. He just keeps punching this Grongi. He's beating him so bad the Grongi flees. He runs away. But he says,
Hmm.
"Nuh-uh." He gets on his bike and he chases him down, attaches the horse armor, and he rams into him, and he's on top of the armor, like he's pinned against the armor. But he keeps
Wow.
driving. He keeps going faster, and eventually he slams on the brakes and he flings him into a nearby river. Kuga transforms into Titan form. He grapples the Grongi, like he gets on top of him. He mounts him in like a top grapple position, and
Uh
he
huh.
continues to punch and punch and punch. He does not stop beating on him. He grabs a stick from the river, turns into the Titan sword, and a final thrust just brings it down on the Grongi, and he explodes.
What was
Now,
the what was the grown? What kind of Grongi was it? I'm kind of
it was,
curious.
it was a porcupine.
Wow, that's actually pretty good.
So it had poison needles that it would jab in people's necks after it was satisfied with making them go crazy. Like, oh no, when am I going to die? Everyone's out to get me. Ah! Like
Gotcha.
it would legit make people paranoid.
Yeah, it was a basic. It's wow, dude. That's actually pretty crazy, man. Like, but it never
Oh
got
yeah, early Kamen Rider was pretty dark.
got you. But did it never affected him though when he was like when he was in his armor form?
No,
Kuga.
no. So because they wouldn't target Kuga. Some would relic like some like a Rhino Grongi who loved to fight. He would challenge Kuga, but most Grongi were in it for their game to prove themselves in
Of
their game or
course.
or to win the game. They weren't out there to fight Kuga or prove themselves. They were trying to win their great game.
Gotcha. I thought like it would make sense, like because like he's building up a reputation of like what he's doing against the Grongi, but it's like I would thought like the Grongi would take a biggest
Well, the
take a
whole
bit.
point of their game is to prove themselves as able
Yeah,
to challenge their leader and then fight him.
of course. I thought like it'd be like a biggest big game for them to hunt down the Kuga. If they can destroy Kuga, then like it's
Some of the Grongi did have personal grudges against Kuga, but most did not because they were just in it for their game.
gotcha. All right.
Yes. So eventually, after they used the defibrillators on Kuga again, because they were like, "Oh, but is he going to lose control again? Is he going to go berserk?" They decide to trust in Yusuke and his good nature, and they revive him. And this time, it gives him an all new black form. I need to send it in the Discord real quick. So this is called Rising Amazing Mighty, or is it just Amazing Mighty? I think it was just Amazing Mighty. So uh yeah, it was known as Amazing Mighty, and it's pretty simple, but it's pretty dope. All of his like red armor from his mighty form turns black. And if
Nice.
you'll notice in the picture, he's got two leg braces. So when he's in mighty form, he has one leg brace, and that leg brace enhances his rider kick, making it stronger. But these two leg braces, now he can do a flying double rider kick with both feet. And when he does do it, he levels a building by accident. Like it gets
Oh
caught in
no.
the shockwave.
Gotcha.
So Kamen Rider is getting close to the grand finale, to its final few episodes. And the boss of the Grongi has made himself known. Um, Daguva again. So Daguva he looks at the Grongi and like, wow, you're all a bunch of weaklings, and he's killed over 100 of them. At this point, he does not care if the Rinto tribe goes extinct. To them, they are nothing.
Wow, that's oh, pretty dark to say something like that. I get like he's fighting the enemy, but like he has really changed on his perspective now.
Well, not Kuga. Daguva. Daguva is the one saying
Oh,
this.
my mistake. Right.
Yeah, no, not Kuga. Well, Kuga does hate them, but he hates them because they treat human life as an afterthought because they don't
Gotcha.
care about it. Yeah. So this is Daguva, the final enemy of the Grongi.
Gotcha. So like all his tribe base have been extinct by his own hands.
Not by his own hands. Kuga did kill a lot of them, but also the police. Eventually, the police go from, oh, we can't do anything, to they adapt. They create stronger ammunition to fight the Grongi and pierce their strong hides. And
Uh-huh.
eventually, with a combined effort of Kuga and the police, they are able to get rid of all the Grongi. At least in theory, I don't know for sure if they got all of them because there may have still been some in hiding. But anyways, because there's also a Kamen Rider Kuuga manga that was released in 2015, which I have not read because I've been trying to get my hands on it for a while. Because it just got translated to English like back in early 2020.
Oh, wow, that's well, you know how it is when it comes to translation. It takes a long time.
Oh yeah,
But to
like
get,
every Kamen Rider has a novel about like that goes deeper into their lore, but not a
yeah.
single one has been translated to English.
Well, it's just basically just getting the raw materials and stuff and trying to translate it, which and also like re-release it, but it's now in English this time.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's
And
some
that
detail.
goes for any Japanese like shows and like books as well. Like
It's just how it is.
yeah, it takes a while for the West to get their hands on it to read it in their own words.
Yeah. But so, anyways, we're getting close to the hour mark, so we're gonna talk about the final battle of Kuga. And yes, I'm sure people in the comments are gonna correct me and be like, actually, it's okay. This is a very quick. It's like an introduction to Kuga and Kamen Rider as a whole. So Kuga, after getting used to his amazing mighty form, he
Hmm.
unlocks his final form, simply known as Ultimate Kuga. And so when the archaeologists were studying all the hieroglyphs from the Kuga temple and all that, he
Yeah,
was they found tales of this ultimate warrior bred for battle. And this is Ultimate Kuga. And after training and truly harnessing his power, he unlocks his form, but he's not able to truly use it. We don't get to see it until the final battle.
gotcha.
So in the final battle with Daguva, he goes into ultimate, which ultimate form is absolutely one of my favorite Kamen Rider final forms. This thing is it's perfect. It's the awesome spiked armor, the gold trim, the menacing helmet. It is glorious.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah,
It's crazy when you say like his ultimate forms like, and it's kind of really funny too, like because he's like organic Kamen Rider because like
oh
it's
yeah,
almost
he'll
like
never be
it's
the
almost
belt
like
will
he's
never
ultimate
leave
life
him.
form.
Yes, in a sense, kind of.
Yeah,
Oh shit. When
he's
did
like
Shadow get introduced into the Sonic
exactly.
series?
He's like Shadow. We used to when did Shadow get introduced? I think he got introduced back in maybe
When did Sonic
2001.
when did Sonic Adventure 2 come out? Okay, because Kuga aired in
2001.
okay, so Kuga aired in 2000, so Kuga came first.
Yeah.
Okay, so also I prefer this Ultimate Kuga. So there are some variants of Ultimate Kuga where his eyes are black, but I think the red eyes are much better. So, anyways, technically, Ultimate Kuga is not his final form, later on in a movie, Ultimate Kuuga got Ultimate Rising Kuuga, but that's a topic for a whole nother day.
Got you.
We're sticking with the main show of Kuuga. So, anyways, Kuuga, he dons Ultimate Kuuga. He fights Daguva, and they have this absolutely just devastating slugfest. They don't care about fancy moves. They go toe to toe, punch, punch, kick, punch, punch. It is a slugfest, and they fight from when the sun rises to when the sun sets. They
Wow,
go they had
wow.
been they had been fighting for so long that the Arcole got damaged, and Daguva's belt that kept his form maintained also got damaged. They both revert to their human forms because all of the Grongi have human forms they use as disguises and also as a
Uh-huh.
way to conserve energy.
Got you. I'm
So
just more curious about the whole environment that they since you said they've been fighting a full day. Is like has any like
so
the
they were
environment in the background got
they
destroyed?
actually, no. It's just a raw slugfest. I'm sure the ground has been shaking beneath them, but so they're fighting in an isolated, snowy like landscape.
Uh-huh.
I'm so they're fighting where there's no buildings, no people, nothing.
Perfect.
So they fight so much that before they de-transformed, both of their armors were incredibly bloody, and they keep going. When they go back into both their human forms, they don't stop. It's just punch after punch. Daguva is loving it. He is bloody. He is battered. This is the first time he's felt alive. He's laughing, and Kuuga is just Yusuke is frustrated. He hates that this man enjoys it, that he's loving fighting because Kuuga or Yusuke, he fights out of necessity, not because he enjoys it. So they are just wailing on each other until the police officer whose name I mentioned, who is basically Kuga's partner,
Hmm.
he goes back to the fight and he yells, Yusuke! Because they both fall over dead. Well, no. Daguva does die because Kuga batters him so much, but
Uh-huh.
Yusuke almost dies. He
Got
does
you.
he does live, but this is the last time anyone ever saw Kamen Rider Kuuga until decade. But we'll get to that later down the road. Anyways, so in the final episode of Kuuga, everyone's talking about fond memories of Yusuke. They're like, what a great guy. He could do everything. And what was his number one skill? Smiling and bringing a smile to others. And that's it. No one has seen Yusuke Godai since. And that's both in the show and in the actual like thing with the actor. So the actor again, Joe Odagiri,
Yeah.
he he loved working on Kuga. He still kept contact with the people he worked with on the show, but he hated working for Toei. He did not like Toei, their business practice, or just working for them. He just had a bad time working for them. So even when he was begged, because if Kuga ever returned, it would be so big. People would lose their shit. Both old and new fans alike
Yeah.
would be like, just shut up and give me what I want. Like they'd be like, I don't care how much the movie ticket is. Let me watch it.
Got you.
And but
That's pretty cool.
unfortunately, Mr. Odagiri just he didn't want to return to Toei because he did not enjoy his time with them. He did express in an interview that he did want to return for the fans, but he would have strict conditions that obviously never got met. And this is how a lot of actors felt back in the day. Toei has changed a lot since the early 2000s, but a lot of actors, once they were done with Kamen Rider, it's like Power Rangers, how a lot of actors would use
Yeah.
it as a stepping stone for their career. And a lot of actors in Kamen Rider, it was their very first acting role.
Yeah, it's just like the story one time with Saban, where it's like how greedy he was, like how much the actors of the Power Rangers, like how much they're gonna get paid was like really not enough, and it's like and said that is all you're gonna get, and that's final. Not to
Pretty
mention,
much.
not to mention with the crossover episodes where he called people, but it's like says basically go get your own plane ticket. I'm not gonna like spend any penny for you to just get
Yeah,
here.
you got to come to me and you got to pay for it.
Yeah, and I'm like that's just crazy, man. It's like well. Yeah, like you said, businesses, man, and how greedy can be.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we may never get a return of the real Kuga because Okay, there's a whole thing with Decade and alternate universes, but we'll save that for Decade. Which, yes, Decade is the name of a Kamen Rider. But
Gotcha.
anyways, um, unfortunately, outside of commercials and the other movies he's been in, um, Mr. Odagiri just has not returned as Kuga, and we may never get that, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, hey, time will tell, right? Can't
Only
say
time will
not
tell.
yet.
I mean, Toei has gotten better, and a lot of actors do return now because out of love for their previous roles or love for the fandom.
Well, yeah, it's called nostalgia. Like, when you make something like of the now, that time, it grows little, then it becomes really big, like a decade or 2 decades later, and then
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
But
So
anyways,
yeah,
that is Kamen Rider Kuuga, and the
that's
first rider of the Heisei era. Next time, we'll talk about the second rider, Agito.
Agito.
Agito. So, yeah, what do you think of? And I gave you a very basic rundown. A lot of stuff you'll have to experience in the when you actually watch the show. Which again, you can get the Blu-ray box set or just watch it on Tubi for free.
Gotcha. I think it's pretty cool, man. Like, actually, really, it's just like I understand Kamen Rider came out first before Super Sentai, aka Power Rangers, from America wise too. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's pretty cool by that is like he's a full Power Ranger team on as a one man together, and I think it's
That's the easiest way I can explain Kamen Rider
yeah,
to most people
basically
is that imagine Power Rangers, but instead of a team of 5, it's one guy who does what they do. And
yeah,
I've met people that don't like Kamen Rider because they prefer like Super Sentai or Power Rangers because they like the team aesthetic, and that's completely
yeah.
understandable.
Yeah, it makes sense, and plus it's also flash. Like they're both flashy, but like people like the Power Rangers because they're more flashier because they have their own like each Ranger has his own gimmick of armor too and
Yes,
devices.
yes. So my final thought onto why Kuga is so popular, especially some people who say they don't like it, but then as they experience more Kamen Rider, they'll go back to Kuga and be like, actually, this guy's fucking awesome. There's a couple reasons for it. One, Kuga is the only Heisei rider who doesn't have a partner. So Kuga, so every rider after Kuga would have what is known as a secondary rider, which is
G-
basically how do I explain it? It's like the sixth ranger in Power Rangers, where you've got the main guy and then the side person who's a partner who helps out, but also has their own powers and gimmicks. But
Gotcha.
but
Okay,
also their power and gimmicks tie into the main rider.
I gotcha.
Like I'm trying to give an example that won't spoil too much. Okay, like there's a Kamen Rider called Kamen Rider Xaid. Xaid is the main rider, and he's also a doctor. And his secondary rider, Kamen Rider Brave, is a surgeon. Like he is a very skilled and career surgeon.
Hmm.
But they're also both gamers because Xaid is video game aesthetic.
Of course.
We'll get into Xaid way later down the road. We'll go in order from beginning of Heisei going forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
that's
so
the Kuga is pretty cool actually. Like also it's really it's that's pretty rare what you told me as well that he's actually technically a first organic Kamen Rider, aka ultimate life form,
well,
basically.
technically there were organic riders in the Showa era, but they were also technically cyborgs, so it's a weird crossbreed kind of thing. It's
Got you.
most of Showa were cyborgs because that was their whole gimmick.
Got you. Yeah.
But yeah, Kuga is a one-man army. He also redefined Kamen Rider because how he has form changes or
Yeah.
power-ups, every Kamen Rider after him would have essentially the same kind of thing. Well, again, there are some exceptions because you got to keep it fresh and original, but
Hmm.
he would redefine like the gimmicks of Kamen Rider with form changes, with the fights, even the rider kick would be redefined.
Hmm.
But yeah, Kuga is he's not overly complicated. Yusuke Godai is a very simple character, but he's so easy to love because of that. And Kuga is just such a fun rider series as well. Yes, the CGI is dated, but it works in its favor because it adds its own little charm, you know?
Well, yeah.
But yeah, Kuga is a very well crafted and especially for the budget they were on and beloved series that so fun fact, every time a new Kamen Rider comes around, the first merchandise they make of him is something Kuga related.
Gotcha. Well, I guess a small budget made the biggest impact ever to spread wide in
It
the Kamen Rider
it,
universe.
it really did. But yeah, so we are over an hour now, but that's fine because we got the main points out of the way. And again, for those who may be watching or listening in the future, if you want to truly experience Kuga, go watch Kuga because this was a very basic understanding of it. But any other questions before we close it out?
Not really. Just like I think it's really cool how it's really good actually. Like what you told me. It's just like how it was for in the at the West with when Power Rangers came out. Like the very first one, it was based on running on a small budget too, and
Yeah,
same concept. They never thought like it was gonna make it big, and it actually did make it big with so many episodes in for only like what 2 or 3 seasons, which was like 60 or 70 episodes a full
it was a
season.
lot.
Those
Yeah,
those days, and
yeah.
spread and basically spread wide in America. This one's
Yeah,
like this one's
they
more
they
like the whole.
they did they did attempt to adapt power not pow they did attempt to adapt Kamen Rider for an American audience, which is known as Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, but we'll talk
Uh
about that when we talk about Kamen Rider Ryuki.
huh. Ryuki. Wow.
Ryuki literally meaning Dragon Knight.
Well, yeah.
But
That's pretty cool.
anyways, that's all we've got for this episode. Thank you for those who joined us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I hope my good friend Wolfie will be able to join me for the next one when we talk about Agito.
Well, I hope you guys have a good night, and yeah, check that link below if he ever puts it down.
I'll also link a video in the description of a man named Marcus who helped me get into the lore of Kamen Rider. Because when I was first getting into it, I didn't know anywhere to watch it, and most websites were like very sketchy and had viruses. And
Yeah.
he has a whole series called History of Kamen Rider, where he goes over each individual rider, talks about their history and all that stuff. And he is a very good source of information for all things Kamen Rider. I'll link his video in the description. And that's all I've got for now. So I'll see you guys next time. And remember, it's always Henshin time.